From KPRC Channel 2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall.
And welcome to this Newsmakers Extra, where Dr. Luis Salinas is joining me. We talked about in our main show this week, he's a sociology lecturer at the University of Houston and Houston Community College. Thanks once again for doing this. We talked about race relations in America. It is a much bigger problem than it's been in a long time. It really has never gone away. Is there any reason to be optimistic that it will go away at any point in time?
I think so. For this reason, it seems that people at the lower levels where the tire hits the road are actually getting along much better than we might get an idea from by talking to the leaders. For example, when we had the unfortunate events going on in Dallas, the Black Lives Movement people protesting and the Dallas Police Department were actually in harmony. There was very little friction between them. They were taking selfies together. When you had 900 people in this event, and there was nothing going on between those protesters and the police department. Mm-hmm. But what happened was then you had an individual with a lot of sort of personal issues took advantage of that situation to make a statement. But when you look at the 900 individuals plus we don't know how many Dallas police officers were there were not any problems there. Mm-hmm. And so that to me shows that at the bottom level, at the base, there is cooperation going on between groups. What
kind of sense do you get from the students? Because you have a different, wide variety of students who you deal with on a regular basis. What kind of feedback do you get from them about the society the way it is right now? Because I know as things have evolved, I don't look my age, but I'll be 64 in December, and in my youth I had a cross burned in my yard in Arkansas. And so that's one of those things that can change the way you think about life and discrimination and those kinds of things and make a big difference. Kids today don't have that. They're getting it from someplace. Where is it coming from, and how do we eradicate that?
Well, the way to look at it is two ways. One, first, kids are not born prejudiced. You know, people learn it. So it's learned behavior. But increasingly, as we have more and more contact between the different races in schools, in sports, and in other venues, it's the idea like, oh, people look at each other, oh, you're not like what I learned. And often, unfortunately, this is learned at home. Mm-hmm. And so, God, these people I'm going to school with, that I'm working with, that I'm playing sports with, aren't like the people my parents are telling me they're like. Right. And so individuals develop individual friendships, and so that's another sort of link of optimism for me.
Well, the Houston metropolitan area certainly is in a good place to be able to take advantage of some of those things with the demographic makeup that we have, which is pretty evenly split, or more evenly split than most places in the United States. So yes, we kind of like a focal point for the rest of the country to learn from what goes on here in Houston, the way the races interact and get along.
Actually, we don't have a lot of those. I mean, we're human beings, so there'll always be little flare-ups, mm-hmm, always. However, here in Houston, like you said, we have about a little bit less than a third are white, a little bit less than a third are African American, a little bit less than a third are Hispanic, with about 10% Asian in that mix. You don't find that kind of mix basically anywhere else, mm-hmm, in the country. And so it really does it makes the idea that if you're going to succeed in Houston, you can't be attacking other races, because you're attacking whichever race you are, you're attacking the majority of the people. Mm-hmm. And so if you can't get along, you won't be successful in business, you won't be successful in personal relationships, in friendships. You'll have trouble just living in Houston if you can't get along with other races. And in that sense, that's a message that Houston can send to the rest of the country.
And at this point, I know the GHP and some of the other major organizations have been touting that about the Houston region, and that our ability to be able to do that. Even having said that, you notice that in Dr. Kleinberg's report out of Rice University, talked about that sometimes the political persuasions of these various groups comes out to be one of the biggest issues that determine their thought process.
Exactly. Usually things like real basic elements like social class, gender, and race were the most important determinants on differentiating people's opinions. But Dr. Kleinberg found that actually political orientation was a much bigger determinant of people's opinions on these issues.
We are going to continue to have this conversation. I appreciate you coming in to have this one, not only for the Newsmakers Extra, but for the other show. And I want you to think about coming back because throughout the year, I want to finish out the rest of this year. Now, however long it takes to continue to have this conversation, I think that maybe you think like I do, that there's always room to have a dialogue about this.
I completely agree. And I will keep doing my surveys, trying to see how people are defining things these days.
Dr. Luis Salinas, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great bow tie.
Pleasure.